Welcome everyone to the Set 9 Neutral review. This review will be mainly on the neutrals from the perspective of an Abysscraft player, not in general of the card. For an example, there may be a card that is better for, let's say, Havencraft, which actually will come up pretty early on, which it may be great for Havencraft, but just not great for Abyss. So kind of keep that in mind. If you kind of play one of the other crafts more and you think a card is really good, and I say it's kind of mediocre and just okay, again, it's just from the perspective of if you're playing from Abysscraft. So with that said, let's get into the card rating system again. The card rating is based on a 6-point system, five being a meta warping, meta defining card, and zero being a garbage card that effectively has no real deck or anything to really support it. With four, just kind of going down the list, but four means it's a strong, solid card and is needed for its respective deck. Three is an average strength card. It's usually use it in its respective deck at a quantity of three. Two is it may be good, but depending on kind of how you want to build the deck or its play style you are going for, you might not even run the card. One is it rarely sees play and is usually pretty niche. And again, zero is it's just a bad card. And as a just friendly reminder, this is from the perspective of Abysscraft decks, or at least the best deck that can run the card. So if I say it's a bad card, but again, it is a great card for, let's say, Haven, for you, it may be a great card, but for people who are just trying to build Abysscraft decks, just trying to help in that perspective. And now I can finally stop beating around the bush because the card I am referencing is Marduk. It is a 6-cost 5/5 neutral follower that's a deity. And on Fanfare, you mill 2. And then you pay 1 to evolve it, and it turns into a 6/6. And on evolve, if you have 5 spells or more in your cemetery, you gain 5 life and you draw a card. And also on evolve, if you have 5 amulets or more in your cemetery, you deal 5 to each enemy follower on the field and draw a card. So Abysscraft is very undersupported in terms of amulets. There is only, I want to say, a handful, and even the handful that there are, there's probably almost none of them are even like good. If you do run this card with Abyss, about the only option you're probably going to hit is the first option of healing 5 and drawing a card. So it's really not worth to run in any deck. Usually by turn 6, you want something that is real strong, and if you're paying 6 for this, you want both effects to go off. But I could see something easily with Havencraft building a deck around this card. This card seems good for that. One funny thing to note is it can be rezzed with Death's Breath at a 6 cost. So that's cool, I guess. I guess you can give it Ward. But again, nothing super crazy, and there are just better things you can do with 6 play points, potentially 7. And the first card to actually matter for an Abysscraft deck is Moon and Sun. It's a 2-cost spell with a deity attribute. And for 2 costs, you do the bottom effect of searching your deck for an Amaterasu or Tsukuyomi and summon it, and then you shuffle your deck. The Act 4 play point skill is when the spell is in the cemetery. You can banish the spell from the cemetery and put an Amaterasu and Tsukuyomi from your cemetery onto the field. This card works really well with 2-cost decks. I know Rulin Eyes are pretty expensive right now, so this is at least a good alternative option because we'll get to it in a second, but Amaterasu and Tsukuyomi are also 2-cost cards. So great synergy there. And same thing with Alter Plane Arbiter. Whether running Moon and Sun and the Amaterasu Tsukuyomi package is better than Rulanai, I suppose that's up for debate, but it's at least a alternative option that at least you can have a little bit of variety instead of it being kind of the very standard, very de facto, just run, the silence package cards with the deck. At least you have a little bit more card variety option. Speaking of Amaterasu and Tsukuyomi, we are going to be talking about it now. So Amaterasu is a 2-cost 2/3. That's a deity lateborn, and it has ward. And when it is engaged, i.e., when you turn it sideways for ward, you gain a life. And if Tsukuyomi is on the field, you get 2 life instead. And Tsukuyomi is basically the inverse of that. It's a 2-cost 3/2. With the deity cutthroat attribute instead of deity lightborn, and it has rush. And when it's engaged, you deal 1 damage to the enemy leader, enemy leaders, and if you have an Amaterasu on the field, you deal 2 instead. Again, it has great synergy with 2 costs because they're both 2-cost cards. Again, it's just an alternative option to cards like maybe Rule and I if you're struggling to find them. At least you can have a cohesive, functional deck. I didn't mention it yet, but between Sun and Moon and Amaterasu and Tsukuyomi, I have them all ranked at 3 because they are just solid cards that have a good home into cost, but they themselves don't do anything super out of the ordinary. Next is a new angel follower. It's called Paradise Vanguard. It's a 3-cost 2/2, so slightly subpar stats for a 3-cost. And its fanfare is if you have at least 5 angel cards in your cemetery, you can select an enemy follower in the field and banish it. You can evo it for 1, so it becomes a 3/3. And on evolve, you select an enemy follower in the field that costs 4 or less and banish it. You can run this in control. It appears with the new cards here, there might be enough decent angel slash fallen angel cards that you can actually make a neutral leaning angel deck. But I have seen a few deck lists in control that run Paradise Vanguard, since 4 play points or less is a pretty high number of followers that can just, and it gets banished too, so it gets around last words. Some fun notes here, but it can be grabbed with Hell's Unleasher, which is not used too much right now, but you can grab it if you need it. And Sahaquil can summon it, and you can at least get the fanfare of Paradise Vanguard and give it rush, and then it will bounce back to hand at the end of the turn due to Sahaquil's effect. Since it is an angel, it can be discarded with Winged Inversion. I have it as a 2 because I wouldn't say it's necessary for a control deck. And I honestly don't know that much about Fallen Angel decks, if they're even like a decent deck to run, or if it's more of just like a meme fun deck. But I'm just kind of focusing more on the control at the moment because that's at least a more real deck that I've seen deck lists of. So depending on how you want to build control and everything, you can run it or not. It's kind of up to you. I'm personally kind of hating that it's a 3-cost 1 Evo that only has 3/3 instead of 4/4, but with it being neutral, I understand. So yeah, you kind of take it or leave it. It's not a bad card, but it's not a great card. But it's definitely not like a staple enough that I feel like it warrants a rank 3. So that's why I kind of lowered it to 2. Next up is another card that is kind of meant for control. It is Satunjer, and I hopefully pronounced that as best as I could. Sutungu, I guess is how it's pronounced in Japanese, but there's an R at the end, so I'm not sure what to do with that. But it's a 5-cost 4/4 giant that on fanfare you select 2 enemy followers on the field and engage them, and they don't refresh at the start of the next turn. Then you can evolve them for 1, and it turns into a 5/5. And on follower strike, I should specify, because that is not a common thing as follower strike. But on follower strike, it does get +2/+2, so it can help kind of board lock the opponent a little bit for a turn if you need a little bit more setup. You could summon it with Sahaquil to tap a couple followers, and Sahaquil gives it rush and assail on Evo, so it could run into 1 or 2 of the followers, but it won't have the +2/+2. But if it survives, it will just bounce back, so the damage is negligible to it. And this might be up for debate, I guess, depending on what the state of the board is and everything. But even though it's a 5/5, it might be worth enough to play it with Death's Breath, even though you're technically playing for one more point than you need to. But, if it's kind of the only best option in the cemetery and you kind of need to slow the opponent down and give yourself ward with this, it's there. Whatever you can do to survive, I guess. I give it a 2 because it's, again, not a card that I would say is super strong that you have to run it in a control deck, but it is played somewhat frequently in the deck. I'd say it's almost teetering on rank 3, but there's so many cards for control that it's kind of up to everyone's kind of personal play style and what their own local meta is to some degree. So I'm just going to kind of just keep this down in like rank of 2. All right, next up is a an interesting card, Oceanus. It's a 1-cost 1/1 deity Lightborn, and whenever you evolve, you choose one of the following: you select an enemy follower on the field and deal it 2, or you heal for 1. Um, this is it's a very weak card. I suppose if you're going second, you would probably want to run this because turn 1 you could play it, and then turn 2 you could, evo a 2-cost 1 evo point follower, and then turn 3 do the same thing with a 3-point 1 evo cost like Rule and Eye or something. But it seems a little little inconsistent as far as like when it would be useful. I don't know. I'm really just kind of it's just a mediocre card, so that's why I put it at rank 1. The only other thing I can think of is maybe in decks that you can potentially evo more than more than once a turn. The only 2 I can think of off the top of my head is like a Natara control deck. If you're running your normal standard control evos, but then you also run Verdia Magna, or in Ginsetsu yokai decks where uh, what's his name, Shuten Doji, he can evo multiple times a turn potentially, for each copy obviously, but by banishing 2 yokai, you can evo him, and he doesn't count towards the evo amount. So in situations like that, I could see maybe you'd want to debate running this, but I don't know. It just still seems kind of underwhelming. The 1 life gain is very mid, and the 2 damage, I guess, could help with board control, but I don't know. I'm kind of mixed on this. It's kind of, it has no solid purpose. But at the same time, it's not like it doesn't do anything. So, if you want, mess with it, but I don't think it's anything revolutionary or game changing. Man, we are getting into the less than great cards, so sorry if I kind of just downplay, generally speaking, the rest of them. But next is Divine Retribution. It's a 4-cost quick spell that lets you select an enemy follower on the field and destroy it. And if you have an evolved follower on the field, you put it in your EX area, so you could potentially use it again. Not a bad card. At least it kind of insta kill something at quick. But I don't know if it's really great. The best I can think of just off the top of my head is it being used in control. But even then, it just seems like a stretch, and there's probably just better options to run instead. So yeah, kind of a mid niche card, which is why I just left it at 1 rating. Next up is Valkyrie of Chaos. It's a 3-cost 3/3 Fallen Angel Cutthroat follower. So not bad stats. It actually has Rush by default, and you can pay 1 to give it +2/+2. So not bad stat boost there. But in exchange for the Rush, I guess you do get Ward, but at the same time you evolve it, so it still has Rush. So not a bad card. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Lucifer, just with the offense defense binariness, but even then Valkyrie is still not that binary. Like, you still basically get Rush when you evo, so it's just, there's no point to put the text on the card. It would be pretty much run if you want to run kind of like some angel / fallen angel deck. I kind of left it at a rank of 2 because it kind of fits that archetype. but it seems like stat wise and effects wise and everything just seems a little more subpar than just like a rank 3, just like average good card. And you can, use winged inversion on it if you need to use the fallen angel side of winged inversion. So kind of overall, just kind of a rather even by effects stance, like a neutral card. It's just kind of does its thing. You can take it or leave it, kind of thing. So. And now visiting the other half of the Valkyrie of Chaos is the Valkyrie of Order, which is a 1-cost 2/1 with the Angel Lightborn attributes, so just kind of opposite of Valkyrie of Chaos. Fanfare, you pay X amount of play points, up to your choice, and you give the follower plus X, and X equals the number that you paid for to activate the effect. So I could potentially, if played on a 10-cost turn, it could become an 11/10. If you played on a turn and it didn't die and it comes back around to your turn and you have 10 play points, it could become 12/11. So it could be a pretty big beat stick. And yeah, that's kind of about where it ends. You could probably just run it in a kind of angel/fallen angel deck. And it can be used for, winged inversion, but pretty much other than that, that's about all she wrote for the card. And the last card for the set is Fount of Angels. I almost wonder if that might be a mistranslation. I've never heard of the word fount, and I know Izumi, which is on the card, is fountain or spring. So not sure if it's going to be called Fount of Angels or maybe Fountain of Angels. But regardless, it's a 1-cost amulet. And Fanfare, you can check the top 3 cards of your deck. You can reveal an angel or fallen angel card from among them and add it to your hand. And you put the bottom in the deck in any order. And then act, you can tap it and sack the card to the cemetery to gain a life. And it can only be activated if you have 2 angel followers or fallen angel followers on the field. So the act is kind of mid. I did put it at a rank 3, though, because if you do build a deck, a Fallen Angels or Angels deck, Fountain of Angels, I can definitely see being run just for the sake of consistency. So just because it seemed like it was just such a nice, consistent tool, I put it at a rank 3, even though I don't think Angels is really that meta of a deck as far as I can think of. At least certainly not in Abysscraft. It may be in other crafts, I'm not sure. But I did want to mention, too, that you cannot discard Fountain of Angels with Winged Inversion, because Winged Inversion says a angel or fallen angel follower, not just angel or fallen angel card. So kind of keep that in mind if you do build the deck. And there you have it, guys. That is the review of the neutral set 9 cards, but from the perspective of an Abysscraft main player. So hopefully that kind of gives you guys an idea of cards you want to play. I'm actually kind of wanting to dabble and maybe make a fallen angel Abysscraft deck. Don't know. I don't really know how consistent or good that would be in general, even just from a functional perspective, but something to kind of contemplate about. But let me know what you guys think about what card you're most hyped for or what deck you want to make. And yeah, have a great day. Bye.